Hello and welcome to episode number 30 of the Hoof and Paw podcast. Today I talk about the dog and the leash. A client asked me why her dog would pull on lead, and I was thinking, there's so much to say on this topic, I don't know where to start. Today we'll mainly be talking about dogs and people who are connected by a leash. Sounds nice, doesn't it? But for many it isn't. And there are as many reasons for this as there are people and dogs, and that brings us right to the heart of the matter. There are countless training courses, tips, and methods designed to help get your dog to obey you on the leash. It may sound a bit mean, but that's how it is at the end. We make the dog obedient so that it walks nicely on a leash and doesn't do what it wants. It shall do what we want. Of course, this makes sense and is not bad at all, unless you ask the dog. If all these methods and tips worked, all dogs would walk nicely on a leash. But they don't. Some more, some less, and some not. And there are as many different reasons for this as there are individuals. Today, I deal with breeds, epigenetics, human design, personalities, behavioral origin, socialization, tools and accessoires. And of course, I also offer a few tips for solving problems. But let's start with point number 1, the breeds. Not all dogs are the same. There are dogs that are bred to and born to pull. Take the husky, for example. This dog pulls. That is its job. Many hunting dogs pull when they try to do their job. These dogs need appropriate training, suitable harnesses, and above all, appropriate exercise if they are to be kept as family dogs. They must be able to perform their tasks. Otherwise, frustration is inevitable. Point 2. Epigenetics. What is it and why is it important? Epigenetics explains the influence of environmental factors on cell properties and the activity status of genes, thus describing possible mechanism of action at the cellular level. Traumatic events and other experiences leave traces in our genetic material in the form of epigenetic changes. These do not affect the genetic material, but rather the activity of genes. A small example. I have a perfect female dog with no health or behavioral problems, and now I have found an equally perfect male dog. The puppies must be perfect. So I travel with my bitch to this male dog, but he is far away and I have to take the plane. The time window is tight, but it's all worth it. There are already orders for the puppies. The male dog is chilled out, lying on his sofa. The female dog is extremely stressed. She senses her human's tension and finds the airplane horrendous. From the airport, they go to the male dog and that's it. Now the puppies are born, and after a while the humans realize that the puppies are not so perfect. They are extremely fearful and some even display fear-aggressive behavior. What happened? The female dog was so stressed that her fear was transferred to the puppies. It also works the other way around. Stress can be transferred by the male dog to the puppies too, or even both parents. And this can even happen across generations. Why is this important? You buy a dog from a breeder. The breeder is well known and successful. The dog is expensive, and yet it can still happen that the dog is not what you expected. But epigenetics is not just about heredity. It is assumed that the first 100 days form the basis for the animal's behavior at the cellular level. This means that genetically everything is fine, but the first 100 days of your future pet's life somehow go wrong. Fear, hunger, stress, or panic shape your pet's early life. This not only influences its behavior, but also its genes. Research has now progressed that the point where the success of a living being is measured not only by genes, but also by epigenetics. I can breed the best show jumper in the world, genetically. But if something goes wrong in epigenetics, the horse will not jump at all. Another case, the dog from an animal shelter. the dog next door already has a history. Perhaps this is not noticeable at the shelter because the dog was not triggered there. But suddenly there is something in your home that triggers its behavior, a smell, a noise. Something is in its environment now that was not present at the shelter, and suddenly the dog reacts. Then it's time to find out what's bothering your dog. The good news is that epigenetically inherited traumas can be resolved with time and patience. Another option, you adopt a dog from a shelter abroad. Now, there are many factors to consider: socialization, epigenetics, experiences, and trauma. We've already covered epigenetics. I think it's quite clear what an influence the first 100 days have on a dog's life and how they shape it. Now, your dog grew up in an area where it was free. It doesn't have to be a street dog, just a stray or a stray domestic dog. In the East and South, people don't walk their dogs. They open the door, the dogs are out all day and come home in the evening. Free, self-determined, social, independent, self-reliant. These dogs have been living there like this for generations. Now they are being caught, which is very traumatic. Then they are locked up. Then they are transported to their new families. Now they live in confinement and are expected to walk on a leash. That's when and where and their owner wants them to. Contact with others is prevented because the dog is so fearful. If you're now thinking, I will just adopt a puppy, then please take another look at the section on epigenetics. Unfortunately, you haven't understood it yet. Puppies from foreign animal welfare organizations are just the same, free, social, independent. That is their basic attitude. And here everything is different. There is no longer any independent self-determination and freedom. And now this dog is making a fuss on the leash, which is understandable because this dog is overwhelmed and frustrated. Fear is the basis. Aggression is a reaction to external and environmental influences. So, next point, human design. Why human design? If you feel like it, you can have your dog's human design chart created. However, I think your human design chart is much more important. What is human design? In short, the human design system deals with the personality structure and basic energetic makeup of every human being. You can also have your astrological chart created or do a personality analysis. But why? The dog is very rarely the problem alone. We humans are conditioned. From an early age, we are taught how to function, what to do and what not to do. And there's little room for individual needs. Most people I know function quite well at some point. But they feel miserable, and above all, they no longer know who they really are. They have hidden and denied their true identity for so long that they no longer know who they are. And that causes stress, insecurity, and fear. We often only know that we are dissatisfied, but not exactly why. Well, here's the reason. We have learned to function and ignore our true selves. Our needs are disregarded and our abilities wither away. Now you share your life with an animal. Animals, like all living creatures, communicate through feelings. Animals are true masters at perceiving our feelings. Now you are constantly stressed. This triggers stress in your dog. Your dog's stress in turn stresses you. It's a vicious circle. When living with our animals, it is fundamentally important to know ourselves, our needs and abilities, how we resolve conflicts or deal with obstacles. And am I more of a gut person or a head person? In our society, all of this is evaluated as better or worse, and grades are given. And that is dangerous, because then I forget how to use my true abilities to overcome problems. Now your dog is afraid or stressed and pulls on the leash, barks and rages, and you have learned methods for dealing with your dog or with your stress, but that may not help you at all because it is not your method, not helping you with your personality. What brings us to the next point. There are dogs like this and dogs like that. There are hunting dogs that don't hunt, huskies that don't pull, and border collies that don't hurt. Just like your own personality, your dog also has its own personality. And it is very helpful to know this. It's half of the battle. If you want to prevent problems or solve problems, look at your dog. Who is she? Does he or she? Above all, dogs are not babies. Sometimes I get the impression we are in kindergarten or at Walt Disney. They want to play, he just wants to say hello. In most cases, this play is a test of strength to see who has authority over whom. It's not playing, it's chasing and fighting, and that can really backfire. It is said that our domesticated dogs are on the level of a 4-year-old child. But that does not mean that your dog is a child and wants to be treated as such. Is your dog also highly sensitive and a leader? Then it hears and smells things long before you even suspect that something might be there. Your dog perceives its surroundings much more intensely anyway. So keep your hands off your mobile phone when you are out and about. A lead dog wants to do its job. It wants to lead and protect. Another dog wants to be led and protected. And you leave it there at the front all alone to somehow cope with everything that comes its way. There are people, children, other dogs, and your dog has to figure out how to deal with it. Of course, with all the stress, it will eventually overreact. If you now have a dog that was used to making its own decisions, it will be one thing above all else when it's on leash, treated. This dog wants to keep an eye on its surroundings for safety reasons. This dog wants to control encounters. This has nothing to do with greeting and playing. Dogs are territorial animals. Family ties are very important to them. Defending their territory, in control. If your dog has this in its genes and was perhaps able to live this where it came from, then it will not be happy on leash. And encounters with other dogs on a leash are only stressful for this dog. So we come to the problems, the behavioral problems, pulling, biting, fierce aggression. All of this often has a cause. For rescue dogs, it is often trauma and captivity. For the dog next door, it is usually a bad experience, incorrect socialization or none at all, and or incorrect training. All of this can be managed, but it takes time. You need time and patience and even more patience. And the right trainer with the right method for the dog-human team. There is no one-size-fits-all solution that works for everyone. Aggressive behavior is always a reaction to a trigger. This can be pain, fear, insecurity, but also frustration. Aggression never comes alone. So take a look at origin and socialization. I've already touched on where does the dog, what has it experienced before, how has the dog lived. It's good to know this so that you can better assess how to help the dog. Ultimately, it's about teaching him. I said in the beginning that we make dogs obedient. And in many training programs and methods, that is unfortunately the case. When we use pressure, pain, or even force. But there is another way. We can also teach the dog to walk on leash peacefully. Ultimately, the leash is there to protect us. Many dogs do not understand this immediately. They see the leash as a torture. How do you feel about the leash? This is just as important. If you yourself detest leashes and see them as instrument of torture, it will be difficult to make the leash appealing to your dog. But perhaps the image of a heart-to-heart connection will help you. You are connected by a bond, and this bond protects you. And so we are at tools and accessoires. One last important look at what's available: collars, leashes, harnesses, and halties. A collar is always good, preferably with a tag and not the lead on. The lead is on the harness. A harness is ideal for outdoor use. It is more comfortable for the dog, reduces the risk of injury to the cervical vertebrae, and makes it easier to hold the dog. It is very important that you buy a harness that fits your dog and not one that you'd like. It is best to go to an osteopath or physiotherapist and get advice. Not every harness fits every dog, and many harnesses do not fit any dog. It's like us going hiking in the wrong shoes and with the wrong rucksack. Trailing leashes should not be dragged along the ground. They should be held in your hand. Yes, it's work and dirt. Flexi leashes aren't bad, but you have to know how to use them. If in doubt, have a short leash with you so you can swap them out when things get tight. My little Callisto is missing a front leg. He has his own pace and we get along best with a flexi lead. However, he is also very easy to walk on lead. Halties. Halties are a kind of a muzzle with a leash attached. They are supposed to prevent the dog from pulling because you can control it by pulling on its head. These things should actually be banned in public. They are an aid, a tool that experienced trainers and trained owners can work with, but it's never the solution for a dog that pulls. Instead, buy a harness that has a ring for the leash at the front, in front of the chest. Halties can cause serious damage to the back, cervical vertebrae, front body and head. Furthermore, these items are not suitable for good training or strengthening the relationship and trust. The same applies to choke collars and prong collars. These are really instruments of torture that do nothing to improve the dog's behavior. On the contrary, they make it worse. If your dog is frustrated and angry and now cannot breathe or is in pain, it will only become more aggressive. These devices can also work wonders in the hands of a professional trainer who knows what they are doing. A lot of trainers saved a lot of lives when doing it correctly, but please do not consider them as a simple solution. And that brings us back to commitment. Good training takes time and patience. And perhaps you have already realized that a dog that has problems with a leash is more than one problem. Things usually develop and often not for the better. The dog is stressed, then perhaps it has the wrong equipment and the wrong training. The stress increases, the frustration increases, and at some point the damage is done and no one wants to know exactly why. Now you know. That was a lot of information, I know. That's why you can read all of this again in the blog. I'll put the link in the description. Now we come to the most important part. What can you do? So I'm a certified trust technique practitioner and I work with this method. Since the beginning of the year, I have also been part of the Pioneer program. James French, the founder of the trust technique, has selected 20 practitioners from all over the world for his personal Pioneer program. This involves working with difficult cases, animals suffering from extreme stress or trauma, also working with people in groups and with people in individual sessions. So, as a trust technique practitioner, actually we are only allowed to work one-on-one with an individual person and their animal. We are not allowed to work with groups. And in the Pioneer program, we are learning to work with groups and with people focusing on their problems, not in relation to an animal. But my current focus is on working with animals that are considered hopeless and untreatable, the broken ones. The trust technique is an ideal method for optimizing the relationship between humans and animals, and it helps animals to learn calmly and gain new experiences. Does it take time and commitment? Yes, of course, but so does any other good training too. So why the trust technique? Because it also helps you as a human being to get to know yourself better and to be able to act calmly in critical situations. In addition to the aspect of calmness, there is now also the aspect of training. What if you could not only walk your dog relaxed on a leash, but you could also communicate without words? Your dog no longer feels the need to run after another dog or rabbit. Trust technique is all about cooperation and communication, without any stress or pressure. And because it is not just about your pet, but also about you, I have created the Magic Mindful Mastery program for you. What do you think when you have to go outside with your dog? What do you feel when you know that in half an hour's time, it's time for the next walk? What comes up? Stress, panic, uncertainty. And your dog? He senses it. He hears and feels you. He feels your stress, but doesn't know what's going on. The likelihood of you having a relaxed walk now is very unlikely. And that's not because just of your dog. One could say that you manifested this unconsciously. But you could also simply say that you are afraid and your dog has taken on that fear. 30 minutes before the walk, you were not present. You were already outside in your head with your thoughts and feelings, thinking about everything that could go wrong, and behold, it goes wrong. In the Magic Mindful Mastery program, you learn how to become aware of your thoughts and how to use your thoughts to create the best possible outcome for you and your dog, or horse, or partner, or whatever. The best part is it's not just about your dog. You can apply this method anytime, anywhere in your life, whether for your job, your family, your relationships, or your finances. Dr. Wayne Dyer once said, "We cannot control what's outside of us, but we can control what's inside of us." And according to the law of attraction, this gives us the opportunity to get what we want and need, and through self-awareness and personal responsibility. I will link more about the program and myself below in the description. Thank you very much for your attention. I wish you a beautiful day wherever you are. Take care.